This video covers the Bally Arcade Astrocade. This is another look at my personal collection. I'm exploring box 11 again, which is box 1 of the Bob Fabris Collection. In my previous episode, I covered about 5 folders, and that was the first part. And in this one, I cover an additional 5 folders. And this one covers a folder that is about the light pen, a folder called Las Vegas CES, one called WCCF flyer, which is about the West Coast Computer Fair, and it's from about 1982. Then there's a folder that I labeled letters, etc., and it was actually had no label. And finally, there's one other folder that I cover called the Add Under Mailings. And this is going to be maybe a few more videos long. I've got about another, I think, 40 boxes to go through, so that probably means another 8 videos in just this box alone. We'll see if we can condense that. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video and look forward to one coming up after this that will cover about 5 or 6 more folders. Welcome back at my continuing look at my Astrocade collection. This is a second look at a box from the Bob Fabris Collection. This is considered, in my opinion, box 1. That's what I have it labeled as. In my last video, I went over about 5 or 6 folders from this box. And if you're interested to know more about the Bob Fabris Collection in general, or even just more about this box, see my video 6 video in this series, which I uploaded actually just this afternoon. And I'm only going to spend a little bit of time in this box today. I'm going to make this hopefully a short one. My last video was 1 hour and 5 minutes. I'm aiming to have it less than half an hour, maybe go through 3 or 4 folders, and we'll see. The last ones I've covered were music, CPM. I'm going to zoom in just a wee bit here and get you a little closer examination of these. As I was just mentioning, yesterday I went through music, I went through CPM, I also went through the Blue Ram keyboard, let's see, a blank folder, and a folder by Larry Kinmitz. Next up, we're going to go through a folder labeled as Light Pen, a Las Vegas CES ads, one called WCCF flyer, I don't know what that is, some letters, some add under information, and maybe that's it. I bet I run out of room before I even get to look at all that stuff. I'll take a closer look just right here, and then we'll just go in and start taking a look at the folders. No need to give you any more overview of this. So in this episode, I'm going to continue to go through these as I've been saying. I don't have any feedback for this episode. And in any case, I probably am not going to cover it from now on because it took quite a bit of the last episode up, even though I really did enjoy sharing what my buddy Chris++ said. So in this one, I'm going to cover, like I said, a few of these. I already just covered just moments ago which ones. So it's going to be Light Pen, Las Vegas, some other folders. And I'm going to take those out now, see if I can't get a handle on what I have here. So about this thick worth of stuff, and I bet it takes way longer to go through than I expect. So let's cut to the chase and get to the Light Pen folder. The first folder that we have up today is labeled Light Pen, and depending on what documentation you see for this system, it'll say Light Pen spelled L-I-G-H-T, then pen, or L-I-T-E. And there is a Light Pen port on the Astrocade. It was never taken advantage of by the manufacturer, although it was supposed to have a program called Creative Crayon, which never actually was released, even though even into the days of Astrovision's work on the system, they were going to release it. In the last episode, in fact, there was a catalog that talked about it just briefly, and I showed that just briefly. I didn't really talk about the Light Pen too much, but I did. If you had a chance to see that video recently or in the last few days, then you saw that. Okay, so let's dig in and see what we have. One thing I do want to show is the age of these folders have been around for, this is probably from the late 70s, early 80s. And look at that. Look at the rust that's on here, which is just ironic considering the next thing we're going to look at. But what we have here is to the Light Pen input. I don't know where this came from. Here it says Dick Hansen. His name rings a bell. I don't remember who it is though. So we have a schematic for a Light Pen, and there's plenty of schematics. This here is describes the cassette port, and the cassette port is actually the cartridge port on the Astrocade. That's what people refer to it as, because they were called videocades or cassettes in the documentation for the early system. Yeah, look at this. Neat stuff. Tells you how to This is also recommending how you can get an additional 1K of RAM through the back of the port. Wow. Oh yeah, so this is a 1K RAM expansion, as well as something for the light pen connector. Huh, I don't recall seeing this before. I know I scanned it, but I don't recall actually taking a look at this. Well, what do you know? Anyone interested in building a light pen for this system? There's definitely documentation on Bally Alley on how to do it. And here we are, Brett Bilbray again. What's neat about the Astrocade is since it has a light pen port, I think it might just be, it's called the light pen port, but I think it's just a serial port. If someone can correct me about that or set me straight, it's the port that the 300 baud interface plugs into, and I think it's also a light pen, or just a serial port. Let's see. So we've got that. Next up, we have something that was labeled by Bob Fabris, that's his handwriting, as being by John Rust, which is why I said the Rust on that was ironic. So John Rust from DNA, and DNA stands for Dave Nutting Associates, and they're the people that designed the Bally Arcade in 1976-77, and it was released in January of 78. So what is this? It says light pen device, talks about it a bit, and then it says here, I use this output to trigger a circuit. Whoops, let's see if that's a little better. I use this output to trigger a circuit to bring the light pen signal to 2.5 volts. And then it says here by Brett Bilbray, and has his address. So I'm not so sure about that, but check into it, see what you can grab. Here's some more miscellaneous information. One note is everything that was on yellow paper did not scan very well, but it's out there anyway. Here's another sheet of paper talking about the light pen port. For this it says, for light pen to work, let's see if I can't do that. For light pen to work, use poke 14 equals, and then it goes on to say what it does. So that's trying to get if you use the light pen from basic. And if you're using the light pen from basic, it's going to be awfully slow and it won't keep up. Here's something from Chuck Zellers. It's a pen dated November 10th, 1979. And it says, Bob, enclosed find $10 check for renewal of the Arcadian. Please keep up the good work. I have found the newsletter very helpful and plan to add keyboard memory add-on that Arcadian is working on. And that was project number 4, which turned out to be eventually released as the Blue RAM, a RAM expansion, which was originally 4K, and then it went out to be, let's see, 8K, 16K, and I believe Ken Lill went on to design a 32K Blue RAM. I think there was only a handful of those made, though, because by that time it was about 1984 or 1985, something like that. This person here, Chuck, says, also I plan to use light pen I wired together after getting a few bugs out. One question, do you know of a source for light pen female connector? And he's talking about, it's an odd connector in the back of the Astrocade for that. It's the same one that would be used, it's like a 3 pins that's used on the 300 baud connector as well. So here's something else for the schematic. So that's in focus. I don't know if that's similar to the other ones or not. I can't really tell. So here's how to build a light pen, and this is not going to be for the Astrocade. I'm not sure what magazine this came from, but it's called How to Build a Light Pen by Scott Fluhler. And if I go through it slowly, I might be able to find out on the bottom of the page. Oh, so that's it. So that's just a short article. I can't tell who it's by or where it's from. Too bad. And next up is another article, and this one is called Let There Be Light Pens, and this is by Sumner Loomis. And let's see if it describes. Okay, so here's how to. I'm not going to summarize this entire article, but the light pen can be used to erase and things like that. Yeah. So, by the way, if you're not familiar with a light pen, they're similar in the way they work to, like, say, the light guns. So they only will work with the original CRTs. They won't work with modern flat screen TVs or monitors. Let's see. So even if someone designed this today, you'd have to use an old TV to go through and actually use the hardware. And if anyone's up for the challenge of designing the software and the hardware, I'd be interested in seeing it. And yeah, I might check out where this is from. So this article, I'm guessing, is going to be from Byte Magazine creative computing. This seems like the time period where that would have been from. Oh, look at here. Duh. It says on the corner, it says January 1976, question mark, and then above that it says byte, January 1978. So this is more likely from, well, either from January or definitely from January 1976 or 1978. And archive.org has this kind of stuff archived, so you can look at the whole magazine. And speaking of which, this picture is probably in color, as most of the Byte magazines were. Creative computing was also that way. Yeah, freehand writing. Yeah, I'd love to see a light pen working with the Astrocade. Well, that wraps up this folder. We're going to close this one and move on to another folder and see what we can find. Yeah. And oh, by the way, this is marked confidential, but this is from probably when it was used originally, so not for this folder here. Let's see what the next folder's got for us. This is another folder in the series here. This one is labeled as Las Vegas CES ads. And the reason this is probably in here is because Bob Fabris, Richard Hauser, and some other people from the early Arcadian scene would visit and have a booth at the Las Vegas CES. And I don't know if they had one. I think there used to be one in Chicago. I don't know if they ever ventured out to that one. But they would have ads that they would have over at the CES and at their booth. And this would have been some of the stuff that they created and then photocopied. And I think you could get these as handouts and stuff like that. So we'll take a look at some of these. These are originals. So here we have computer bytes, cursor newsletter, and then here's also those. What were they called? I guess end labels. So interesting. This is still on sticker paper, so I'm not sure how that would have been used. I don't know if this was blown up, and I don't know. I don't remember if Fred Cornet or Cornet, however you say his name, who was the editor of Cursor and Basic Express, if he attended with Bob or not. I don't remember knowing about that, but perhaps he was. So here's an ad for the source book, and this is a mock-up ad. Whoops. This is a mock-up ad. But the source book definitely was available. Oh, and these, let's see if I can't show here. So those things I keep calling end labels were actually called edge tags when they were advertised in the newsletters. Order your copy today. And this is, so the source book, it cost $6. And that's the one that was like a catalog for the Astrocade back in the late 79 or something like that was the first one, I think, or 1980. Let's see, here's the Arcadian, an ad. This one's the same on both sides. Oh, so this is double-sided. So here's the first page of the ad and the second page of the ad. And let's see, memory editions, program tapes to sell. This might have just been ideas that eventually got made into more professional stuff. You'll find a lot of that kind of stuff. This is all the handwriting of Bob Fabris. It's weird that I know his handwriting. Arcadian programs, buyers who want programs, and prove to you that they'll pay for money, or not, they'll pay for money, they'll pay money for material. Here's sample material that would have been in the source book. And I've talked about the source book in some previous videos. If you ever get a chance, take a look through them. They're a great little read. Here's some people who, I don't know if these people helped sign, I don't know, these are just people's names. Let's see if we can see here. We have L&M Software, Georgia Moses. These are all names, well names in the community. So maybe these are people who advertised at the CES as well. W&W Software Sales, Rich Tietjens, Wavemakers, Richard Belton. He's the one who made some additional hardware for the system too. Don Gladden, Andy Guevara. All these people, if you look them up, they have programs or hardware to their name in the small Astrocade community. Steve Walters, Scott Walpole, Brett Bilbray, Seabreeze Computing, Barry Ellerson, Esoterica Limited. This person's name I don't recognize, Roger Saunders, and Edge Software. I recognize Edge Software. They made some software for the Astrocade that's easily available. And this seems to be just the same, or no, there's some additions in here too of other names. But that's it for what's in this. If anyone out there has pictures of any of the CES shows that might involve the Astrocade, or even some just interesting pictures from that time period. When I was looking through the box yesterday, and I looked at the folders, you might recall that there were some pictures that had Astrocade's booth, or part of it anyway, in a foreground picture. And I would love to see some more detailed pictures or video shot at any of the Vegas CESs during maybe like the 80 to 83 period before the crash that happened here in the United States for the video game industry. Because it seems like it would have just been a really interesting time period to witness the CES, which by the way stands for Consumer Electronics Show, where at the time they would show off new computers and game systems, and as well as other electronics, which you can tell easily enough when I was looking through the folders from yesterday, and they had like Laserdisc players and things like that. Or not Laserdisc players, CD players from the early 1980s. All right, let's move on to the next folder and see what we can find in that one. This is really fun. Hope you guys are enjoying this too. This folder is labeled WCCF Flyer, and I wasn't sure what that was, so I took a moment and I went and looked up what it possibly could be. And once I saw it, it was obvious. It's the West Coast Computer Fair, and I wasn't sure what year this would have been from, but I looked through here because it's not labeled, and I suspected it's from like 82 because there's a couple letters in here from 82, and I also noticed that 2000 Baud Basic was already out by the time this came out. So let's get started. And this is the Arcadian had a booth at the West Coast Computer Fair in, I guess, 1982. Maybe it was 83, but probably 82. And they had people sign up. If you visited their booth, you would sign in your name, and so that's what all these pages are. And they would say some stuff that they purchased. So, for instance, the first person to sign this, Stephen Burney, didn't say he purchased anything, but some people do. So we have someone named Brian Din, I think, who bought an Atari newsletter and some kind of published thing. I don't know. Then we have, I don't see anyone else who really filled it out like that. I don't need to go through all these, but there's about 15 pages of this. 10, yeah, something like that. And I'll put this back together in a moment. Then these are all stuff that was copied. So if you see here, this was all copied. So this was all stuff that was, some of it anyway, was handed out. So in these prices were effective in January of 1982. So this is definitely from the West Coast Computer Fair from 1982. So here's what we have. We have L&M Software ad, and L&M Software created some pretty good software in the early days, and they went on to convert most of it and then create more of it for the Astro Basic, which is a little faster. These are the early pieces of software, which are kind of slow, but they're functional and somewhat fun. Bombardier is kind of interesting. All right. Then we have a letter to Bob Fabris from Ed Grobe, and he actually did some machine language stuff. I think he wrote a program called Christmas Tree. Man, in fact, I can pull this up. So this was from March 8th, 1982, and let's just see what he has to say. He says, in a separate package, I've just mailed 9 tapes for sale show at the West Coast Computer Fair. Well, there you are. If I hadn't known already, then I would know now. And he includes what they are. And he talks about some demo tapes, and the prices are marked $13 each. I wonder if there's any letters to him. It'd be neat if I could see like what was written to him and see how many cassettes he sold. Here's another piece of documentation from Mike Peace. He's talking about encloses my Castle of Horror tape. And he says, I would like to have on display and for sale at the fair. So Castle of Horror is a really great looking game that's a little difficult to play. He also wanted to have Pack Rat and Look Out for the Bull for sale because there were a nice selection of programs. Pretty neat. If anyone has any memories of visiting the West Coast Computer Fair, please write some notes in the comments below, especially if you have any pictures from the West Coast Computer Fair, and even more so if you visited the Arcadian booth and have pictures from there, or if you have some pictures of Bob Fabris or something like that. So here's another program, or another letter from Ed Grobe. Video Wizards, they have, this is a program for, well, these are really just graphics, and I have a really kind of neat video that covers most of these. And I guess it was Ken Springsteen left a comment, I don't know, last year on it, something like that, that it was said he was like a blast to the past to see his own art. Okay, here we go. Ken Springsteen has some another letter. I love these handwritten letters. I mean, the fact that they're saved and it's scanned in somewhere. Enclosed is 2 copies. Yeah, You can probably read that on your own if you're interested. Just pause the video. Andy Guevara sent in some stuff. So here's, I've talked about this for almost every single video so far. I'm not sure why it comes up so often, but for his machine language manager. And here's his, so he sent this off in February to Bob, and Bob was pretty darn good about keeping track not only of his stuff, but when he received it. So if he sent this off, so this was a not postmark, but it was written February 25th, 1982, and Bob received it February 27th, 1982, which is kind of cool. So Bob has some stuff that he wrote here, okay, and then ha. So I wonder what that's about. So he starts off, as usual, I'm responding to deadlines a little later. Let's get down to where he says, haha. The only problem is that I have a minimum order of 100, and he says, okay. As yet, I haven't tried them out to see how the 2000 baud tapes copy across, but being originally recorded on audio systems, there shouldn't be any problems. And Bob says, ha, because nope, that ain't true. It's difficult actually sometimes to get software to copy on the Astrocade, to say the least. I mean, now we use digital formats to do that, and it's not a big deal. So Bill Luce was did some machine language programming, and he was part of, man, I can't remember the software company he was part of, but maybe it says here, enclosed is an ad sheet for the West Coast Computer Fair. I don't actually see an ad for anything by Bill Luce, but yeah, and that's it. I think that's all that's in this box, well, or this folder. Yeah, I think that's it. And then a price list for that a price list for the offset printing. So we'll close up this one and we'll move on to another folder. Trying to get through these pretty quickly, but also all this is for is to give you a hint of what you can look up and see for yourself. Remember, you can find all of this either on ballyally.com or on archive.org, or not always both, but one place or the other. And this folder is something I've labeled myself, letters, etc. And it's got some letters and etc. The first one is a article that Bob Fabris wrote, and this was actually submitted to a couple of different computer magazines. I don't know if the rejection letter is here, but it was never published. And it's online at Bally Arcade, and it's actually pretty interesting because it gives a good rundown of the Astrocade. It was called Arcade Resurrection, and if you do a search of my website, it should pop up. And I think at this one, I think I took used optical character recognition software to make it into a text format. But I'm going to read the first paragraph here, just because I find this article interesting and it might get you intrigued enough to look it up. Arcade Resurrection. Originally sold as a pure TV game accessory beginning in November 1977, the Bally Arcade was upgraded to a computer status by the introduction of a Bally cartridge in August 1978. This ROM cartridge contained a version of Dr. Wang's Palo Alto Tiny Basic, reconstructed to utilize the onboard Z80 CPU and to accommodate 3 custom ICs that were included in the original unit to provide arcade color and sound features. An upgrade was promised that would provide a full-size keyboard, additional memory, and a new language called ZGrass. The author started to publish the Arcadian newsletter when the basic cartridge appeared to support users with documentation and software, since the factory was loath to part with any data. By disassembling the basic cartridge and onboard ROM, many interesting features were discovered and were published in the newsletter for use to the subscribers. And so a couple of neat features here that it's neat to see Robert talk about in this fashion is, let's see, he says BASIC came out in August 1978, and I don't think it was delivered until September, but that's fine. But he talks about how it was Dr. Wang's Palo Alto Tiny Basic. And for those who aren't familiar, that was published in People's Computer magazine, something like that. And it was, Tiny Basic was written in 8080 machine language, and the software was freely available. And it was meant to be used on a system with 4K or less because Microsoft Basic used so much more memory. And some people couldn't run it on their systems because they just didn't have the RAM. And also, Microsoft Basic didn't have the source code included, so if you wanted to modify it or anything, you just couldn't do it easily. ZGrass never came out. It says he started publishing the newsletter. But what's interesting here is he says that the factory, meaning Bally, I'm guessing, didn't want to part with any data. But eventually, pretty quickly, they got data from someone, and they started sharing how the Astrocade worked. But in the beginning, it's true, people were just poking around with literally looking at the hardware and using poke the poke command in BASIC just to figure out how BASIC worked. And all the original software was written in BASIC, and eventually people were able to program in machine language. So here's some letters. Let's see what they are. This is a letter written to someone named Ray. I'm guessing that this would probably be someone, Ray I think was the president of Astrovision, I think. Don't quote me on that. But whenever Bob wanted his stuff to look professional, what he would do is he'd print it on, I guess he had that thermal printer with the silver paper, and then he'd put his Arcadian frame around it, and then he would photocopy, and that's what he would send off. So there's that. Gentlemen. Yep, and here's the example. So here's what he would do. So here's letters to... oh, check it out. So here's a letter to Harvey Gernsback, the editor of Radio Electronics. And I think, let's see, he's talking about... I'll just read it. A note to Mr. Cornett's letter in the May issue of Radio Electronics, page 23. And Mr. Cornett is the publisher of Cursor. And from it, one would infer that there are no other Bally-oriented information source available. In actuality, I've been publishing the Arcadian newsletter since November 1978. And here's, I guess he also wrote to Science and Electronics to tell them about it as well. And you'll note here, if you look, Bob had access to the source, which was an online information service in the 1970s and 80s, and that's, if you wanted to contact him, that was how you do it. I guess it was kind of like an ID. And there's actually some email that I have that Bob printed out from his Apple computer, and that I saved in the collection. So here's something that someone named Tom. More stuff here. Yeah, man, I really should read this stuff, but I can't read it obviously on camera. I could read it and then go through it, but then I will never get through even one box, or even one folder probably. So here's something from Roger Saunders, and this is from December 1981. And this is interesting. So this is for a cassette that would have been called ICBM Attack, and this program was not released on cassette. It was released on cartridge, but there are prototypes of it that were written on the cassette, so that's kind of interesting. And if you look at this carefully, you'll see the way this would fit is when this would be printed out, this would be folded over onto the cassette. And this is definitely sticker paper. So if I was to peel this off, and put it on a sticker, it's probably not sticky anymore, but it would work. And so, Brett Bilbray, if you are out there listening, let me know what the heck this is. Was ICBM Attack originally meant to only be released on cassette tape? Huh. Let's see. So, let's see, this is from Roger Saunders, and he says, etch tags for your software products present and future. I might say in here, I don't know. I'm not going to read this. If you're interested, you can look it up on Bally Alley or archive.org. So yeah, neat stuff. Video visions. Here we go. Weird stuff. Places where computers were, the arcade was sold. So Video Vision's a complete home video store, January 1982. Gentlemen, our stores sell a large number of Bally Arcades and are interested in your newsletter and whatever companies you are aware of who manufacture products we can sell to arcade owners. Please let me know how to get this information. Thanks for your help. Alan Glaslin. So that's probably a good person to contact, who was a third-party person who, this is 40 years ago. Whether these people will have any memories of this or can even be found. But digging through the Astrocade collection or the Bob Fabris Collection, you can find these people. And I know there's some people trying to do some research into the history of the system now. So dive into the stuff online, and you'll find some stuff you can use. Dealer Deal. Let's see. This is something from Ken Springsteen, printed on odd paper. You can't tell probably. This is, the paper feels really weird. You know why it feels weird? Now I see why. This was printed on an actual typewriter. I can feel it. You can feel every single indentation here. Wow. Or, I suppose it could have been, no, it wasn't printed on. So, like, whenever anyone would make a mistake, they'd X it out, or use whiteout, but it's very common. You'll see a lot of typewriting material in the Astrocade collection that has X's over it because it was typed on a typewriter, and to fix it, they would just use X's. We've come a long ways, haven't we? Let's see, I don't know what this is, but something printed on silver paper. Here's some L&M software. I'm going to show you one of my favorite games for BASIC. It's by L&M Software. It's called Claim Jumper, and it's basically a game that's you can play on paper, and you get all these X's or all these dots, and you have to make squares out of them. What's neat about the basic version is it plays a pretty good game against a computer. Space Checkers is another pretty good game. Oh, I just realized what this is. So this is Ken Springsteen talking about and sort of reviewing some of these programs he's come across. So yeah, I'll check it out. So he's talking about this, and then he says this is what he thinks of Phantom Starfighters, which I don't actually think has been archived, and he says, I have this. Excellent use of graphics. Challenging, too. I always like to hear what people thought of these games way back in the 1980s. Okay, that's the end of that. And we'll move on to maybe one or two more folders, and then we'll wrap it up for today. And I will, I don't have time over the next few days to edit this, but I will edit it and then get it out there for you guys to check out. This is the last folder that I'm going to cover today. This one's labeled Add Under. The Add Under was what was supposed to have come out in like 1978. And this is not going to be the original one. This is from, Bob Fabris received this November 27th, 1981. And this is something that George Moses came up with. I don't think I have the original of this. It's, I mean, this is a copy, a photocopy of whatever the original was. And this is not the original version of the Z-Grass that you would see. I have like a nice high glossy version of the picture, which is obviously what George Moses used. But this talks about what the Z-Grass was supposed to be, but this was put together by George Moses, who had a print company, and so he did some quality work for the Arcadian, and a lot of the high quality ads that you might see in later issues of the Arcadian were because of George. And I noticed something when I was just browsing this a few moments ago, that and this is from 1981, and I've often heard, well, let's back up a second here. I've often heard that this system, the Bally Arcade, not the Z-Grass, sold 300,000 units. I've never been able to find or trace where that number comes from. And this is from 1981, so it was being sold by Astrovision by that time. But I saw that George Moses says, if George Moses is correct here, he says, Z-Grass, dynamite in the marketplace. In the first place, you have over 50,000 present owners of the Bally Arcades out there who already have the top half of this Add-Under Z-Grass computer in their hands. Most of them have been patiently waiting for over 2 years for us to slide this under their arcades to finally give them some real computing power. These are creative people who have had to put up with the limitations of 1.8K BASIC long after they were ready to go onto some more usable computer with more memory. So I don't know if that's accurate, if 50,000 units were all that were sold by 1981. And don't quote that number because, I mean, I don't know where George Moses got it from, but it's not often that I've found any numbers at all. So these are people who were requesting information about the Z-Grass. The Arcadian in one of the newsletters said if you were looking for information, drop him a postcard or a note and he would send some to you. So these are the people who requested information, I guess. I guess I'm not going to go through all that. So this is, I don't think this is actually in order. Yeah, this is just 2 pages. I think this is what he sent out to people who requested information about Z-Grass. And he talks about what Z-Grass can do. And again, Z-Grass is a language that was supposed to come out, but never actually was in the marketplace for the Astrocade. And it's not even been dumped as of 2021. So I would love to see it and try it, that language. But this is what, so this talks about what Z-Grass was capable of. This is available in several places on Bally Alley. And this is a common thing that went out to people. So that reminds me, I wanted to show something here. I noticed that Bob Fabris wrote a comment on this that says, where? And he says, the software that we'll be able to create using this new system, talking about the Z-Grass, will be staggering in volume and complexity and realism. And he says, and their appreciation of the fact that it is available now after you've waited so long will be demonstrated by a strong demand for these units in advance of their availability in the marketplace. And he goes, where? Where are these available? And by 1980, the UV1 was available, which used Z-Grass. So that I'm guessing that that is what George Moses is referring to. So let me skip here. We don't need to see all of these same ads over and over and over. So here are some highlights. I'm going to skip all of this. This basically talks more about Z-Grass and what was available and some of the language and some of the how it could be compared to other systems. What I am going to do is I'm going to show something on the back of this page, or on these 2 pages together. So it's comparing. It's probably not too clear here, but I love these kind of columns, how they're set up. So video game features, and it's comparing the Bally Arcade to the MP1000, the Atari video game, which is a 2600, the Odyssey 2, and the Mattel Intellivision. And it says, does it have 4 joystick ports? Only the Bally does. Does it have built-in games? Well, the MP1000 has 1 built-in game, but it's hardly a game at all. It's called something Patrol, Rocket Patrol. Terrible game. Built-in. Do these other systems have built-in calculators? No. Do they have built-in keyboards? All of them do, except for the VCS, and on and on and on. And so it kind of stacks itself in this this deck in its favor. Like, does it have a light pen connector? Only the Astrocade does. Does it have a pre-programmed audio cassette? Only the Astrocade does, etc. More like that. And then it compares the Z-Grass to other systems. And these other systems that it compares it to, the Z-Grass compared to the Atari 800, the TRS-80 color computer, the TI-99-4, notice not the 4A, and the Apple II. And the Z-Grass has 64K, which is apparently way more than the Atari. You know, I guess the Atari technically did ship with 16K of RAM, the Atari 800. So yeah, these are the minimum standards for the systems at the time. RAM can be expanded, not applicable to the Z-Grass, which is funny because the UV1 actually operated using RAM disks, and like 206K RAM disks. So that's why one of the reasons those systems were so expensive in 1980. Is ROM included? Stuff like that. So and people cared about this kind of stuff, and I find it interesting even to this day. Keep on going. Add under, add under, add under. And if you really want to dig into this, it's all available. You can read the entire documentation. So here's a letter from someone named Mike Morhaime, and he's asking probably some information about the Arcadian. So he's resubscribing. He says, every month I look forward to reading it, meaning the Arcadian. I like knowing what cartridges are coming out. I am very interested in purchasing the Z-Grass memory keyboard when it comes out. Please put me on the list you were talking about a few issues back. And so someone wrote in, and they got some of this information sent to them. And these are more people who got information sent to them. We'll skip ahead to here's some more letters. These are probably people just requesting information. Handwritten letters. And here's a question mark. I talked about that in my last video. So he probably doesn't know what exactly is going on here. So he sends a letter. Says definitely would the add under. Yeah, I guess he means I would definitely like more information about it. But I mean, people like just send very brief comments. So, oh, here's a postcard. It's kind of neat coming across postcards because I like to send postcards to my son and to my wife. And here's one from, I don't know where that is. This is from Prescott, Arizona. And this was sent postmarked June 25th, 1982. And he says, please send me the instructions on the UV1. And the reason Bob Fabris says question mark is because Bob Fabris didn't have that information. He would have to write to Datamax about that. Then he says his name is Sved Hansen. I wonder if he ever got that information about the UV1. It was available. You could pay for it. It was $30, I think, to get it. So here's some information about the Astrocade. I'm not going to go through that again. Here's some more handwritten notes. We're almost to the end of this folder, so we'll wrap it up here. This is, like I said, the last one. We have handwritten notes. Says, in the February edition, you mentioned anyone interested in the Z-Grass add under should contact you, and so this person does. And it's also interesting to me that they use their paper from their work. So this person worked at Amex Nickel Division in Greenwich, Connecticut, which was where I grew up. I grew up in Connecticut, or for a few years anyway. Let's see what we have here. Here's some more people asking questions about the add under. I like these little sheets of paper. And the reason I like these little sheets of paper is because people would, I don't know, I just like these handwritten notes. The fact that they're available and I can look through them. I'm just going to read this one from start to finish because you don't get to see this kind of stuff. May 22nd, 1982. Has Bob Fabris's address. He received it May 30th, so it probably came a long ways. It came from California, so I don't know what the deal is. Maybe that's when he opened it. Bob says, or he's, let's see, who wrote it? Mark Carlson says, "Dear Bob, I enjoyed our conversation today, and as always, I look forward to hearing about the long-awaited ad under. Please put me down as one who will jump when called. Also enclosed is my check for $26 for the Galactic Invasion cartridge." Oh yeah, I guess by this time Bob Fabris was selling some cartridges. "I'm glad you had extra, as I can't find it anywhere. Thank you again for faithfully publishing the Arcadian. It is my only link to the thousands of other arcade owners." And he's right about that. The Arcadian was really one of the few ways people could be contacted and feel like they were part of a community. So here's an ad someone included with their letter. So the ad, let's see what the letter says. This is from Jeremy Murdoch. It was written June 25th, 1981, and he says he's interested in the Z-Grass 100 ad under. I guess I have heard it referred to as that. And then I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he's got a 2-page letter, and he includes this snippet from a newspaper that he photocopied. And it's called Home Computers. Video game industry offers barbaric spin-off by DX Fenton. Let's see what it says. Wonder how long it would take someone to figure out how to take advantage of all the hoopla of a new movie and convert it into a video game moneymaker? The time has come, and experts say it's liable to revolutionize the video game industry. The first real-time Dungeons & Dragons type video game to spin off a currently appearing movie will come to life in homes all under the United States this summer. Cleverly called Conan, so he's talking about Conan the Barbarian, which never actually came out, or Quest for the Orb. The game comes from the adventure fantasy character in the Marvel comic book series, which was made into a movie, Conan the Barbarian. This video game cartridge, the first to spin off a movie or a comic book, also is the first Dungeons & Dragons type game that's playable in what is called real time. This means a player can pick up a hand controller and get right into the action, exploring glorious or perilous dungeons, outwitting and slaying assorted monsters, and casting magic spells, and even confronting some very fearsome wizards, all without having to waste time by typing in instructions. So maybe he's comparing it to something like Zork at the time. The game, which is said to combine the strategy of a game such as chess with the fast action that has become the trademark of many video games, is being promoted as a method to help speed up players' thinking, improve their abilities to solve puzzles, and exercise their imaginations in ways never before imagined. Well, I wonder if that's accurate, huh? Produced by Astrocade, previously known as Astrovision, the game is meant to be used on the Bally Professional Arcade home video game unit, renamed the Astrocade, which features sensational graphics, realism, easy to use, painless, no matter how long held, pilot-style hand controllers, along with built-in games, a calculator, and a personal computer. Man, it really makes the Astrocade sound like the best game system at the time. And it just didn't have the software. And it was kind of low-res, even by 82. The Atari, like some of the later Atari games were looking really good in comparison. Like in the hands of Activision, they just made their games look so superior. The new game expected to show up soon in coin-operated video games and those transmitted by microwave. What is it? What? And cable networks to homes, hotels, and other markets should be ready for the home market through dealers early this summer. That's interesting. And this was sent in a letter from June 25th, 1981. Maybe he says where he got it from. Let's see. Also has become, let's see. Oh, look, he's talking about Muncher. He calls the Muncher game Munchie, so that's interesting. Let's see if he talks about where he got this from. P.S. I have included a copy of an article on the new Conan videocade that appeared recently on the Sunday, June 20th edition of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I find the article interesting and thought you might like it too. Yeah, I'm glad he said where it was from. We've got going on here. We're almost done with this folder. This is why I'm not going to ever finish the first box. So these are empty. Oh, this is from him there. These are just empty envelopes. And we have, finally, the last thing we're going to look at is pretty plain. Sunday, July 1982. And this is someone's address. So that concludes this video. I don't want to conclude it on something like that. Let's see if it says where this is from. I'm gonna let this wrap up the video. But thanks for watching. Come back for more. I'm going to go through some more. In fact, I'll show what the next ones I'm going to go through are. This way I'm not ending on this. I'll talk about what the next upcoming folders are going to be. These are the folders that are going to be covered next. we have a folder titled Programs, and it's got just miscellaneous programs, many handwritten, and some of them are in pretty poor shape, but they were scanned. Like, look at this. This is totally deteriorated. Look at that. But I'll show that in more detail in the next episode, and then we'll see what else we have here. We have a program called Walters Commercial Programs, and that'd be Steve Walters' programs. He wrote a whole bunch of programs for Bally Basic, and he wrote. You'll see a lot of this in the Astrocade collection on Bally Alley that says not for publication, because originally this is what's neat about some of these programs, is you wouldn't even get the program on tape. You'd write, you'd get an envelope, and it would have this program. This program here is Hidden Word Finder, and there's others. What else does he have in here? He has, well, I'm not going to go through this in this one, but you can look forward to seeing that. And I do want to thank a couple of my friends out there who have actually given me good feedback, because my personal friends, I don't really expect them to watch this kind of stuff, because but they have, or some of them have, and I find that intriguing that they have found it interesting. This is AMI data, so this would be, they were the company that created the the chips that are available as the custom chips, and as you can see here, the custom chips were designed as early. The first revision of them, I don't know if you can see that, is from January 27th, 1977. So about a year before the Astrocade, or the Bally Arcade, was actually released. And I think this information is actually in the nutting manual, plus additional information. I've actually always wondered if, this is like, yeah, here's the data chip. The data chip is the one that frequently has some issues, but like technical information about it is there. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, and some more. We'll look more at that later. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into the details. And let's see, here is just called miscellaneous. I don't know what's in here, just miscellaneous stuff. Oh, check this out, Astrovision. This is an early Columbus, Ohio's letterhead. Astrovision, you don't see that for too long, so it's neat that that's on here. So this is from September 1980. Also, by that time, September, they were already trying to, I think it was in 1980 when the company actually bought from Bally the system. What does it say here? Well, I'll look at it next time. That'll be fun to cover. And the last thing we'll cover in the next episode is going to be Project Faire. Project Faire, as I've mentioned, maybe not in this episode, but in previous episodes, Project Faire becomes the Blue RAM, which is a RAM expansion for the Astrocade, and there's some really early details here. So, oh, here's a picture of, I'm not sure if this is John Perkins or Clyde Perkins, but here's a picture of him from 1980 April. Hey, if someone out there knows if this is Clyde, I think I actually have this labeled. I think this is the older, so the father, Clyde Perkins. The Blue RAM with I/O and me. So, teeny tiny little unit. This went on to become kind of like the de facto most popular standard, I think, for the systems at the time, or for the Astrocade. There were other ones, but that one was the least expensive by a long shot, and even though it was a couple $100. Right, well, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this video, and come back for more if you can take the abuse. And if you can't, I don't blame you. It's just little old me going through my collection, trying to share it with some people who are like-minded, or friends of mine who just think that I can make a video or two that might be interesting. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Enjoy my website, and visit archive.org to download most of this information.